Hello, and welcome to the Dissident Mama podcast. Today, my guest is Ashley Ray Goldenberg. Goldenberg is an independent journalist and a content creator who is known on social media as Communism Kills. She's an outspoken America Firster who's not only loathed by the left, evident by her permanent banishment from Twitter, but Goldenberg has also found herself in the crosshairs of the Libertarian Party and Con Inc., whose Beltway Borgs have verbally attacked and even canceled her for daring to challenge allowable opinion. Anyone this triggering to cultural Marxists, libertines, and neocons must be doing something right. So I hope to get to know Goldenberg a bit, introduce her to those of y'all who don't already follow her, and of course, get her take on a few hot topics. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yes, it took a while, but I'm so happy it's happening. And let's just dive right in because I have a lot to ask you about, and I really do want to get to know you. I already feel like we do know each other a little bit going back and forth on Telegram, but let's just go for it. So you're a freelance writer who used to get picked up regularly by Daily Caller, Newsbusters, Capital Research Center, Medium, LifeSite News, Newsbusters, MRC TV, and American Greatness. But before we get all to that, let's see why you got into writing, who you are a little bit. So you've been politically writing since when, or writing at all since when?
Well, I started my blog, Communism Kills, my freshman year of college.
Okay.
So that was, I'm going to date myself here. That was 2011.
Okay.
So about a decade ago.
Okay.
And I was writing mostly about economics, but because it was a Tumblr blog, it was basically up against what was known then as the social justice warriors. So I started talking more about social commentary. And then in 2014, that's when I got doxxed. So that's when everyone found out my real name, who was actually behind the blog and everything like that. And a few weeks later, I started an internship at the Daily Caller.
Okay.
So I was at the Daily Caller back when Tucker was there. And then I got hired by the Media Research Center. I wasn't a freelance writer. I was full-time salary and everything. So for about 3.5 years. And then I was at the Capital Research Center for a year and a half-ish.
Okay.
So,
And the doxing, what was that like back in the good old days? Was it pretty innocent, squeaky clean?
Well, that's before anyone really knew what doxing was. Right. So when it happened to me, I remember it happened around Thanksgiving. And I remember being at Thanksgiving dinner with my family and people were posting, oh, this is Ashley Ray Goldenberg. These are the names of her parents. This is where they live. Like all this information, obviously where I went to college and everything. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm sitting here and these people on the internet right now are like trash talking my family. Like they were sending my mother hate mail. They're trying to get my mother fired from her job. Like they contacted what they thought was my mother's employer saying, oh, her daughter is saying racist things on the internet. And they're like, yeah, we don't care. We don't care what someone's daughter does on the internet.
Right. Nice.
It's before things became the way they are now, basically.
Yeah.
And basically my father said, well, if anyone shows up on our doorstep, like I'll tell them to go screw themselves. Okay. It was basically the best reaction that anyone could have.
Right.
But people tried to get me expelled from college. It got to the point where they turned off the comments on Facebook for the college I went to, which I think had 40,000 something students, because every single comment was about trying to get me expelled. And I got a message from the diversity office, and it was actually a message saying that they're so sorry for everything that's happening to me, and they defend my right to free speech. So that's before everything got as bad as it is now.
That is pretty squeaky clean. Where'd you go? George Mason?
George Mason, yes. Yep.
Now, were you a journalism major, econ major, double major?
Econ major, yep.
Econ major? Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know about George Mason, but they're known for their libertarian econ department. Yeah. So I'd always been right-wing, and I wanted to go to college where I wouldn't get in trouble for my political views, which ironic, but I figured I could go, it was between Fordham on a scholarship, or it was George Mason. I'm like, listen, if I go to Fordham, I'm going to be in the Bronx. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be like these far left professors there. So I chose George Mason, majors in econ. That's basically all I did.
Okay. Now, where are you from originally?
Well, originally Brooklyn, and then most of my life in New Jersey.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
And you're a Virginia now? I'm a native of Richmond.
Okay, yeah, I've been in between Fairfax and Arlington for 11 years, which I know that's not the real Virginia, but
that's all right.
It's for a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just keep on coming south. Just keep on coming down here.
Yes,
Come to North Carolina.
Yeah, at some point I was thinking, oh, Loudoun County, maybe I'll move there. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, if you're ever planning on having children, don't move to Loudoun County. Goodness gracious. Yes. Okay, so you said you were always right wing. I don't meet many people like that. Did you know you were like into the Austrian School of Economics before you went to George Mason, or what?
Right. So the first political thought I ever had is when a police officer came to our school, and you're like, how police officers go to elementary schools and they're like, oh, well, here's why you should look both ways before you cross the street and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So this officer was talking about click it or ticket. So I don't know if they have it everywhere. Basically, if you don't wear a seatbelt, they can pull you over and give you a ticket. And obviously it's a revenue raiser. There's not really any reason why they have it.
Right.
But I remember asking the police officer, like, why are you giving them a ticket? It's only their own stupidity that they're going to hurt themselves. So I've always kind of had like this libertarian right-wing bent. And when I was in middle school, they made us take a constitutional law class. And I remember I wrote a defense of what's considered hate speech. And I guess it was like such a moving essay that everyone's like, wow, this has made me rethink what I think about everything. This was ages ago.
Wow, do you still have that?
I was looking for it when I was back in New Jersey and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that would be a cool, post that and like
I know.
A glimpse back in time. That would be really interesting.
I did find like my senior year of high school, I had a classmate and we were very anti-Obama at the time because he was president. And we had these drawings that we did, these doodles of diversity is great, but this guy's the bad oppressor. And it was Obama holding the Chinese flag and stuff like that. So I was very politically active in high school. I was definitely part of the Ron Paul movement. So
okay,
and that's how I found out, obviously, about George Mason. I would read the Mises Institute and stuff like that. Okay. So yeah, I was very into Austrian econ. I had in my dorm room an Austrian econ poster right behind me.
Isn't that amazing? Ron Paul was at it all these years, just spitting into the wind, nobody listening. And well, some people listening, but not a household name. And then, 2008 comes about and the early 2000s, and people are so disillusioned with both the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, it really was a special time. I wish it could have gotten a little more oomph, gotten us down the track a little bit further, but it still has produced a lot of wonderful current young thinkers, and you're one of them. So I'm really happy to find out more about you. So how would you describe yourself politically? I described you in your intro as America First, but you're also dissident right. Like, do you see those as together? But I've seen you in a MAGA hat. So what are you?
Right. Yeah, I have a MAGA hat. I also have a Reagan hat. I have a lot of stuff, just like random stuff lying around. But it's interesting. Like someone asked me recently how I would describe myself, and the only thing I would say is I want to own the libs, and that's basically the only way I really would describe myself. It's interesting. Like I let other people describe me because I'm like, okay, well, they'll say whatever biases they have, like they'll just use them against me or whatever. But I'm like, all right, if you say that's what I am, that's what I am.
Okay. Do you think dissident right is a good characterization?
I feel like that's probably right, because I'm definitely very much not in the conservative establishment.
Right. But you're also, I don't know this for a fact. I've been following you for a long time, but I don't read every single solitary thing you say. The libertarians, labor can just move wherever it wants to go, free flow of labor and borders and stuff. What do you think about all that, like with your Austrian econ credentials?
I mean, there are certain things that in order to graduate college that you had to like say ideologically, like you had to make the case for open borders in order to graduate college.
It's true.
Yeah. Gosh, that was just like one of those things you had to do to pass these classes. They were obviously very ideological, like in the same way that like you have to say these very liberal things to pass a political science class in whatever other university. Like you have to say the libertarian dogma to pass these classes at George Mason. So I don't believe in any
Fascinating.
Yeah. Like there are times where it's like, oh, well, I would say to my professors, like, well, like, for instance, obviously, what about the welfare state? Like, that you can't have open borders in a welfare state because people are going to come to the country because they want these benefits. Oh, well, that's just putting the cart before the horse. You have to have open borders first, and then they'll make the argument that, which is a true argument, that people are less likely to support social welfare programs if the population is not homogenous. Mm-hmm. So it was basically they wanted open borders to get rid of the welfare state, which I don't think is a great argument.
I don't either. And even Rothbard came to that conclusion by his death, I always heard. So whatever. That's interesting. Did you ever take a class from Thomas DiLorenzo?
No, I don't. He's not affiliated with George Mason, is he?
I thought he was. I know he taught there at some point. It may have been a long time ago, like
right. I don't know. I had Brian Kaplan, who wrote The Case for Open Borders. So
okay, yeah, because I was like, Thomas DiLorenzo, I don't think would be pushing that, but I think by the time you were there, he was probably teaching elsewhere. No. Okay, so never a feminist, never dabbled in any liberalism.
No.
Oh man, you're awesome. You are just a gem. I mean,
it's interesting because like my family never really discussed politics with me growing up because like I was a child, they weren't going to discuss politics with me, but it just so happens that like as I got older, I realized, oh wait, all these views that I have are like the same exact views that my parents have and then my grandparents have. So
nice. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm pro secession. I like borders because I think they would be here, whether the government existed or not, they have throughout time. So, some are drawn up by governments, but what do you think about secession, Southern nationalism? If America's first, can it be divided? And is it even worth saving? That would be like my big question if I was talking to Nick Fuentes or Michelle Mallory, any American firster.
Sure. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because a lot of the backlash that I got while I was still working within the DC establishment was because I was very much in support of secession. And I said things would have been better if the South seceded and the South was left to secede. Right. And it's interesting because the same people who were very angry at me for that are talking about national divorce. And I'm like, well, what about like secession when it was actually happening? And you were against that because you're like, oh, well, that's racism and bigotry and states' rights just means the rights to own people and stuff like that. But I've always been like a very big advocate for
If you can hear me, Ashley, you're frozen.
Government of your own choosing.
Oh man, you were frozen for like 8 seconds. You said I was a very big proponent of secession, and then it was like your period on the end. Can you just
just that my connection is unstable. That's interesting. I just got a new router, but I was just saying that I think like secession is one of the most libertarian things that people can support. So the fact that there are libertarians who don't support secession makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. So at one point when you were on Twitter, you had changed your name to Ashley Ray Groypenberg.
Yes.
Cute. So a hat tip to the Groypers. And for people who don't know, those are like the followers of Nick Fuentes and like his America First movement. So that movement, that Nick Fuentes part, and I guess probably most of the American First movement, and you can tell me if you disagree, they're highly critical of the state of Israel because they see Israel lobby as pro-war, pro-censorship, putting, whatever the secular socialist nation state of Israel above America is not America first. So is Israel our closest ally that must be protected, with American blood and treasure, or is it something else? Is it a ball and chain? What do you think about that?
Sure. Well, I've never been a supporter of foreign aid to any country, and I've never really supported any foreign war either. I mean, I come from the Ron Paul camp. It's always been very anti-foreign intervention. I know this might be very controversial. I think a lot of people, when they talk about Israel and they say Israel is doing this to America, Israel is doing this to America, it's not Israel. They just don't want to say Jews. I know. That's kind of I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on that. But as far as whether it's our greatest ally or a ball and chain, I believe that I guess America should have alliances with everyone in theory, but I also believe that America shouldn't put any other country's interests above its own.
Okay. And back to what you were just saying. So if somebody says they're critical of Israel, you equate that with just saying that you're critical of Jews?
No.
Okay.
No, no, that's not what I meant at all. No,
okay,
no.
say that again. Sorry, I was taking a note. I was like, huh, what?
No,
Okay.
no. I think when a lot of people on the right, especially on the far right, when they're like, oh, well, Israel wants open borders for America or something like that, I'm like, well, it's not necessarily Israel that's asking for that. It's Jewish groups within the United States.
Got it.
And I feel like people sometimes use the word Zionist and Israel when they really just don't want to say Jews.
That's a very good distinction. Yes, I like that distinction. And I think that's really fair because, I mean, a lot of it's is, people in Congress, Jewish Americans and non-Jewish Americans pushing this stuff too. Neocons, Dan Crenshaw and whoever the heck else is up there pushing the stuff that says, when you are critical of Israel, I mean, they equate it with anti-Semitism. That's why I wanted to clarify, because I didn't think you were saying that.
No.
Okay. Yeah, because that's silliness.
No, that's like a common assumption people make about what I believe. They always say like, oh, well, if someone criticized Israel, you would be the first to say, oh, no, that's anti-Semitism. I'm like, well, that's not what I'm saying. And that's not what I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it comes with the territory of being Jewish. People assume a lot of things that I believe.
Yeah. May I ask you, are you a practicing Jew?
I used to be for a while. I used to go every Friday to services locally, but I had to stop going because there was this guy there who would listen to my conversations with people. And the way that Jewish services are set up is, I think it's very different from Christian services in that it's more of an open discussion and a dialogue, that it's a rabbi says something and you have a conversation with the rabbi, like, what does this mean to you? How does this relate to your life? At least the services that I went to, I used to go to Chabad, but there was this guy there who would listen to everything I said. And then he would post about it on Facebook in leftist meme groups. So these were supposed to be a safe space for people to talk about religious things. And here he was remembering everything I was saying and posting it on the internet for other people.
That's horrifying. Would you go back if it was a safe space? Like, you consider yourself still a religious person?
I don't know. I really don't know necessarily like where I fit in religiously. I mean, that bothered me on a very deeply personal level, and that he also got elected to the leadership of the organization. So after that happens, it's kind of like, well,
put a
not
bad
really
taste.
too keen to go back now.
Yeah, put a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
But would you say, have you given up on God, or it's just?
Oh no, I'm not an atheist. The way I used to put it on Facebook back when I created my Facebook back in 2006 was atheist, and that I definitely believe in the existence of a God, but as far as more than that, I'm necessarily not sure.
Okay.
And I was going to say the big reason why I went to the Chabad on Friday is that it was more of, here are people discussing like very deep issues, and these are people who I share like a like culture and things like that with. Okay. It wasn't necessarily, I don't understand Hebrew, so I couldn't really understand what was going on.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's your safe space. I mean, that's how I feel when, I go to a divine liturgy at an Orthodox parish. It is supposed to be a safe space. God is supposed to be present, and you're surrounded by your people, the people who share in your belief system. And that's important. So that's a bummer that happened to you. Well, this will segue kind of well into my next question. So your moniker is Communism Kills. Why did you choose it?
I actually read it. There's actually a story behind it, like besides the obvious.
Excellent.
But I was visiting colleges, and I was at CUA, which is Catholic University of America. That was one of the colleges I was thinking of attending, but it's also outside the DC area. But well, it's actually in DC. But I was there, and they had a flyer that just said "Communism Kills" on it. And that's all it said. There was like no information about like, what is this? Like, who's putting this up? And I'm like, oh, that's really catchy. So I guess I borrowed it while visiting at CUA, but
nice.
That's That's why I got it.
I'm a fan of alliteration, so I love it. And it has persisted on, and the graphic you have, which is the hammer and sickle just turned upside down. Very, very clever. So I have solicited some questions from readers. So here we go. So they want to talk about what they see as a disproportionate Jewish involvement in Bolshevism. The reason we're asking you this, your communism kills, Bolshevism and communism obviously have something to do together. So Jewish American scholar Paul Gottfried had once said, you cannot understand the Bolsheviks without looking at their Jewishness. And he said that Bolsheviks were really interested in destroying what they saw as a repressive fascist Christian nation. So in my opinion, I know you feel like this may be stereotyping you, but I think that from some of my followers, this was just a good faith question because most of them are traditionalist Christians. So set the record straight for us. What do we need to know?
Well,
do you agree? Was there disproportionate involvement, or is it just they were wackadoodles? What?
I mean, yeah, the opinion that I always have is that any movement that starts with kind of like, to borrow the term, the intelligentsia, is always going to be disproportionately Jewish, because Jews are the people who are obsessed with studying, learning, teaching, being professors and stuff like that. That's very much part of who we are as a people. So obviously I don't deny that like any Jewish or any communist organization anywhere is going to have a large representation of Jews. I do not deny that. I think that some people nitpick a bit in that, for instance, to me, they'll tell me that I can't actually be an anti-communist until I deny being Jewish and convert, but also at the same time, I can never not be Jewish because I was born into a Jewish family.
Right.
So,
you can't win.
Yeah.
Well, you could convert to Orthodoxy and we would say it's just fine. My best friend who is Orthodox is half Jewish, and it's nobody cares. It's all good. But yeah, so this is kind of what I think. I've written about this before. So there's a historian named von Bieberstein. He was a German Jewish historian, and he wrote that Bolshevism was led by a majority of Jewish radicals. However, he made the point in his book that pious Jews spoke out against what he called the Jewish romance with communism. Dennis Prager has made the same point. Once you leave ethical monotheism because of Jewish culture and religious history, like they still clung to the religiosity, but just replaced it with isms and secularism and stuff. I think that's a pretty good point. That's why I was asking you about your faith. And do you see that as a common thing? The secular Jews over here going crazy. I would assume Rosenbaum was one of those secular Jews and not going to synagogue. And, the pious Jews just doing their own thing and maybe wanting to be left alone.
Sure. When you look at even the voting records, if they break it down versus people who consider themselves Jewish, because again, they're born to a Jewish mother, they're raised being Jewish, as a lot of people say, that yes, they are Jewish, but they don't actually follow religion, like people who eat bacon every breakfast on holotoast. But if you look at the voting records, like the Orthodox Jews, who are the most religious Jews in America, I think they voted 90% for Trump. Mm-hmm. So they are definitely more right-wing politically. It's just because of the way Judaism is, in that the only thing to be considered a Jew is to be born to a Jewish mother, that there are so many people who are atheists, who are secular, who don't really believe in anything, but they still identify as being Jewish because they are ethnically Ashkenazi usually.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to your deplatforming and how you have been banished from polite society. Yes. So you've triggered a lot of people. So let's just move down the list. So the libertarians, what did you do? Just criticize an LP candidate or what?
Oh gosh. So gosh, do you remember when Cuccinelli ran for governor?
Yeah.
Okay. So when Cuccinelli was running for governor of Virginia, there was the libertarian candidate, gosh, what's his name? Sarvis, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had received a bunch of money from Obama bundlers. And I asked on the Libertarian Party Facebook page, like they were very much against Cuccinelli. Like they portrayed themselves as like anti-social conservative, and that was their position.
Right.
So I remember just asking on Facebook, hey, how come your candidate got money from Obama bundlers? Paraphrasing, it was basically the same question. And then they banned me from their Facebook page. And then like a few years later, I believe on Twitter, I had mentioned that I was banned from their Facebook page. Oh, gosh, I don't remember when the Cuccinelli race was, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And the leadership, oh gosh, Sarwark, his name is, from the LP.
Yeah.
He basically just went on this rant, like calling me crazy and stuff like that. He's like, oh, well, you were spreading crazy conspiracy theories and you're a crazy person. And then like other people from the LP were chiming in. I think they called me like a neo-Nazi or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. So that's fascinating. Now, what about Instagram? What were you putting on there? That's just pictures, right? And then you got banned for hate speech?
No, I haven't been banned from Instagram.
Excellent.
Well, okay, so I get in trouble every now and then on Instagram. I think people just mass report me. My account is private and you can't follow me unless I accept you. So I try not to accept people I don't know. But back when it was open, I had posted pictures. I went to Malibu and I posted pictures of the beach, and they're like, your picture has been taken down for hate speech. And I'm like, it's a picture of the sunset. And then
wow.
and like I don't know like what caused that to be flagged or anything, but a few days ago actually, I used, well, I knew this probably would get me in trouble, but I used the word tranny. Did I say that? I used the word tranny, and then I immediately got this has been taken down for hate speech and you may lose your account. But I'm still on there. I post pictures of food and my sister basically.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, I'm small potatoes, and there's a blessing to that. I'm not making a ton of Patreon money, but I'm flying under the radar, and I've been doxxed, but my dox wasn't nearly as scary as yours. I mean, it was scary, but my parents weren't threatened or anything like that. But this happened in May 2020. So that was just a very tenuous time anyway. So it was sketchy. I was totally paranoid. But anyway, it was not what yours was. So there's a beauty to that, because you're often allowed to, well, not allowed, you just say all sorts of things and nobody notices.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just because you're big, you're in the crosshairs. So that's a good thing, because people listen to what you say. I mean, you wouldn't be being attacked if nobody was listening to you. They would just ignore you.
That is true.
I am pro sunset, so whatever. Well, let's get to Twitter. You had what, 40,000 followers when you got deplatformed or banned?
Yeah, I think it was around 45-ish thousand. I don't remember the exact number, but something in the 40,000 ballpark. Yeah.
Now I've read what somebody said it was about. You tell me, what got you the boot from Twitter?
So, gosh, when was this? This was June 2020, I believe, or July 2020 when I got banned. Whatever it was. It was during a QAnon like mass banning, in that they banned anyone they thought was sympathetic to Q. And I guess it was because Chrissy Teigen got upset because Q was like accusing her of being a creep because she has some pretty creepy photos with kids and stuff like that, and said some very creepy stuff to underage people.
Right.
But it was because of her that they started mass banning all these accounts. And I responded to the Twitter safety tweet, and they said, what offline harm has Q caused? And then within an hour, my account was gone.
Right.
So that's how I got banned. But I had no warnings before. I had to remove one tweet once, but it wasn't even like it was in a timeout. They just told me to remove a tweet once. And that was like 2 years before that or something like that.
And you're just asking a question. And to me, it really didn't even sound like a rhetorical question. It's like seeking information. But I guess maybe it was rhetorical, because there was no answer.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, no warning, just the boot.
Yeah, and it was interesting, like right before I got banned, the order of things is that I was in DC and I had gotten attacked in, I guess it was called the Black House Occupied Zone or Autonomous Zone, something like that. And I was streaming when I got assaulted, and a few days later, I couldn't log into my Twitter account anymore. And they told me that it was for my own protection and that my account had been hacked. But then when I tried to reset my password, they said there was no account with this information, which made no sense because that was my account and that was my username, that was my email address. And apparently that's a thing that they found out a few weeks later that Twitter had the power to do, that Twitter could, from inside, they could disconnect your account by like saying, oh, there's no more email address associated with this account. There's no more account of this name, and there's nothing you can do because you can't get in contact with Twitter. But I think it was Breitbart. I think it was Breitbart that wrote an article about this happening to me, and I was able to get my account back. But that's just one way they can basically ban you without banning you.
Okay, so the assault, I've watched the video, I guess you took, and it's hard to see what's going on. Walk us through that. This was what, like June 2020? Where were you?
Yes.
How did they know you were who you were? Like, walk us through that, because I think with the Rittenhouse thing, we really need to put ourselves in his shoes, how scary it was. So let's hear your experience.
So I actually, against my better judgment, was dragged into the BAZ, I guess that's what they call it. And I was just like walking around.
And this was what autonomous zone? Where's this?
I think it was Black House Autonomous Zone. Yeah, Black House Autonomous Zone. Okay. And it was like a block from the White House. Like you could see the White House where Baz was. It was like
I get it now.
Alternate Black House. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So I like taking pictures, taking video, like just listening to people, and like the people are like in the cops' faces and like trying to get them to do something. They're instigating stuff. So when it happened, like there was this white guy who was like getting yelled at, and we didn't know why, but they took him back through the sidewalk they had sort of like blocked off. So we're trying to, I was with someone at the time, and we're trying to see what's going on. Like, why is this guy being sent down the sidewalk? So this security guy says, oh, you're not allowed back here, you're not allowed back here. And we're like, this is a public sidewalk. We can go wherever we want. Like, this is DC. This is federal property. Like, I'm allowed to walk on this sidewalk. So the guy let us through. And I don't remember why, but there was a group of people, like, they took this white guy's cell phone. They were like completely beating on him. And I this was like their area that they designated to assault people, I guess. Oh. And then they had like an area where there were medics, and like only medics were allowed. So they didn't like the fact that I was recording. Right. So they tried grabbing my phone from me, and I would not give up my phone, obviously. It escalated from there. I was pushed to the ground. People always say that I was laughing, but the thing is, my glasses were thrown off my face, and I was looking at my phone, and I was squinting to trying to see if I was still recording when I got assaulted. Right. But yeah, my glasses were broken. They're still broken. These are just same glasses. But yeah, I tried to walk away, and this girl like wouldn't leave me alone. And she was following me and yelling at me, and she was like threatening me that she was going to assault me again. And I'm like, just leave me alone. I'm just walking away. And,
yeah, you can hear you saying that. It's crazy. You know, you're trying to flee, get away from the harm. And man, having your glasses knocked off your face, for people who don't wear glasses, like that's a huge deal. You know, if my glasses are off, I can see okay. You know, I can make out fuzzy images, but some people are blind.
Yeah, I'm not completely blind, but I mean, it was dark at night, and I knew I had my glasses knocked off my face by people who want to attack me. So yeah,
I mean,
scary.
It is scary. And did they know who you were, or you were just a chick who was enraging them?
No, I was just a person who went on the wrong sidewalk and was recording the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Okay,
as far as I know, I was never led to believe they knew who I was.
So I had been, you know, following you. I recognized your name, you know, would see you posting things that I'm almost always like, yeah, you know, go girl. Well, this was the thing that I love. This was when I was like, this girl's my hero. It was the list you published with 269 hyperlinks to corporations. And I think your title was, I think this may not have been the title, but whatever, the subhead: despite the chaos, destruction, and deaths, woke companies across the country have still come out in support of Black Lives Matter, Antifa terrorists, and general criminals. The only place I can find it now is on VDare, which has the headline, here are the companies that support Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and what you did. So
that was my original headline, yeah.
Okay, so that was yours, because I wanted to see, because I'm like, it's true. And that's a great headline, and is not hyperbolic at all. So that is literally, for y'all who don't know, and I'm going to put it in the show note links, just links to their ads and their stupid virtue signaling. And you're just linking to things.
Yeah.
It was so smart, not easy to do because I'm sure it took you time, but just so simple and bold. And that's what got you in the crosshairs of what, Medium and the Capital Research Center?
No, I was already gone with the Capital Research Center when I put that out. I think I even mentioned, I'm like, I have no job right now. I just have free time. So send me links. But yeah, I got banned from Medium. They never explained why. I just got banned for putting that list up. I think I remember at some point it had like a few 100,000 views. Like, I think it was at least 200,000 views before I got taken down. And gosh, I remember the reason why I made that list is that I remembered during Charlottesville, right after Charlottesville, I remember thinking, why are all these companies condemning this, which has nothing to do with their actual corporate like ideas at all? Like Panera condemned Charlottesville. I'm like, well, Panera wasn't even created in Charlottesville, was it? Like, none of this makes sense. And I'm like, I wish someone had made a list back then of all these companies with these statements that make no sense and have nothing to do with who they are technically as a brand.
Right.
So that's why I made that list. And there used to be a Twitter account, which was Woke Capital, which really helped me with that too. Like I would look there to see if I missed anything and I would just, cool, I got everything.
I'll check that out. I haven't heard of that.
I think they were suspended a while ago.
Oh, oh well. So what got you the boot from Capital Research Center?
Oh boy. it was a long story, but the actual justification for why I got fired was that there was a right-wing watch hit piece about me. And
that Jared guy?
Jared Hall, yep.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I was fired.
Now, for folks who don't know, tell people kind of what Capital Research Center is. That could be anything. What was it? Who ran it? Sure. What was it supposed to be?
So they were a nonprofit that was basically about following, they're still around, that is basically about following the money and following funders of organizations and stuff like that. So we would write stuff, well, here's all this money Soros is giving to this cause. Here's all this money the Tides Foundation is giving to this cause and stuff like that. So that was kind of what they were about for the most part, still are about.
And just because the right-wing watch bully tyrant guy was writing about you?
Yeah.
I mean, write about everybody. Who cares?
I know. Well, they didn't like my post about the Ahmaud Arbery situation. And that was what most of the article was about. The article went like 10 years back into my history because I've been doing this stuff for a long time, a very long time. So they're like, oh, did you know in 2010 this happened? Do you know that in 2015 this happened? Blah, 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 blah.
Wait, about you or Ahmaud Arbery? What do you mean?
No, sorry, about me. And the hit piece on me
was
about Ahmaud Arbery, but it was really about, here's everything this woman has ever done in the past 10 years that we're going to try to get her fired for now.
I see. Just parsing every syllable, every verb, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, the hook was that situation because it was happening at the time.
Right.
This was right before George Floyd, like the George Floyd video went viral. So it was before that happened. That was like the news of the day. But yeah, even before the right wing watch hit piece, like Turning Point USA people were trying to get me fired and stuff like that. And like the editors at Human Events and National Review, the Bulwark, they're all like tweeting things about me. Even my former colleagues at Newsbusters were tweeting stuff about me and stuff like that. And I'm like, you sat next to me for 3 years and you never said anything to me about me being a white supremacist or anything like that. But now you're saying something. That's really interesting.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute because that is the biggest problem in my opinion. Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all the globohomo weirdos are going to do what they're going to do, but good people stabbing people in the back, not standing up for them, none of this would be effective if we didn't put up with that. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So you were fired from Capital Research Center, but they still have your stuff there and just took your byline away?
No, right. So I was fired in May, and then I was trying to get my writing samples together to apply for jobs, and I found out that they took my name off every single article I'd ever written for them.
Right.
And instead of having my name, it just says staff.
Right.
They did this a month-ish after I was fired. Like, I'm not in the news anymore. No one cares about me. The hate piece happened. Instead of just like for other people, they would just see like, oh, so-and-so is a former reporter, which is what they originally did. But then they took every single trace of me off the website, including my old byline. There's no bio for me anymore. I had never existed with the organization. And my name's off everything I wrote. Yep. And then
but your work's there.
It's there, but it's under staff.
So they have the work of all evil white supremacists, just not the byline.
Yeah, they have my work, but not under my name.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to pull people into your web of right-wing, whatever.
Well, I mean, it gets worse. So that right after that happened, they put in an event called CancelCon against cancel culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
A few months later, after
I think they kicked Nick Fuentes out of that, didn't they?
Yeah,
or somebody.
Well, they had Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and I think it was in coordination with YAF. But gosh, like, how can you say you're against cancel culture just a few months after you delete your employee's byline, and a few months after you fall for a right-wing watch hit piece? Like, you're everything you say you're against. It makes me laugh. It's so bad.
Yeah, well, integrity is in short supply these days. It just is. So you're getting burned, have been burned for simply speaking the truth. Okay, obviously this is frustrating, enraging, blackpilling. In March 2021, I believe you wrote this on Telegram. I'm going to read what you said because I think it just nails it.
Please remind me.
Yeah. If you're 2 years or even 2 weeks ahead of the curve, you'll be beaten down and called a racist and a white supremacist and a this and a that. Fellow conservatives will try to destroy your life and condemn you. But when the momentum goes your way, the entire right then starts using your talking points, and then some leftist figureheads are repeating the same things you said. They'll be considered heroes, and you'll still have your entire life ruined, even though you were right all along. So I just read that and I'm like, yes.
Just I said that in March?
I think it was March 2021.
I said that before I was even fired from my job. Yeah.
You must have seen the writing on the wall. So, well, then in July 2021, I actually saw my friends at Identity Dixie sharing this and saying to pray for you. You had written, I don't really think I feel much like living anymore. And that's all you wrote. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So was it just this feeling of abandonment? You know, what happened? How did you get through it? And how are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Well, one thing that happened that I didn't expect to happen after my firing is that basically everyone I had been friends with, like, didn't speak to me anymore. And like, I basically had no one at that point. And even people who are like, oh yeah, I'm there for you no matter what, like no matter what happens, I'm gonna help you, blah, blah, blah. They just completely disappeared when it actually mattered. So that like, I don't know, that just sucked. And in July, like after I had lost my Twitter account, like I didn't even have the ability to even really get my message out there anymore in the same way. Like obviously I'm grateful for Telegram and Gab and everything like that, but like I lost my job and then I lost my platform, and then I started making like, man, like I'm like, how am I ever going to get a job again? Like, how am I ever going to be a normal, productive member of society again? And that like really weighs on you when it's like, crap, like you lose your job, like everyone hates you, your friends are nowhere around, like what do you have? And thankfully, like my parents, like they were like, oh, don't worry, like you land on your feet, like don't worry about anything, like you always have us. I'm like, everything you said was right, don't worry about it. Right. But there are people who are in worse situations who like they literally lose absolutely everything, and they don't have a family that's like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And like, gosh, that must be even more devastating.
Right. Well, thank God. Thank God you had a good family.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, you are gainfully employed now, and I know looking for jobs. I mean, is it, see, if I was you, I'd just walk into an interview and like throw my communism kills logo down and just be like, mic drop, whatever, you need me here. Like, how does it work for you? I feel like anybody who has looked at your work knows you have integrity, knows you're an excellent researcher, and obviously a really good writer, or else you wouldn't be triggering people. So do you just kind of go in and lay all your cards out on the table, or what?
It's interesting in that the way it works a lot in like DC journalism world, and like I guess like the movement in general, is that you don't get a job until someone approaches you telling you they have a job for you. Otherwise, if you're just like aimlessly applying for jobs, like basically nothing is ever going to happen. Like I could apply to whatever place that's ideologically aligned on me on most things, and then I'll never hear back because they Googled my name, or someone within the organization was like, we're not going to hire her. Like there are times where I've told people like, hey, I'm thinking of applying for this job, and this group is very, very aligned with me. And they're like, no, this person there hates you. Don't apply. It's not worth it. Like this person will block you from getting hired. Don't do it. So stuff like that does happen. So without like the connections that a place like Twitter would have for you, it's very hard to find employment unless you're going independent, basically.
Right. But things are looking up as far as job wise.
I'm currently doing some contract work. I mean, I would love to one day have the dream of having a salary and benefits again, and have my own byline again where I can write things. But I'd rather not say where I work right now, just because I just assume people are going to find out where I work and then try to take it away from me, basically.
I was not going to ask that question.
No, I know. People have their ideas, I guess, and I'm not independently wealthy. There was this theory that I'm independently wealthy, and that's how I've been able to survive this whole time. Like my family's independently wealthy, but that's not it. I'm just a very frugal person. That's how I've been able to get by.
Yeah, it's almost like the default. Oh, well, we really wish she was, destitute, living in a ditch. She's not. So there must be something strange afoot.
I mean, I've seen these theories that I'm bankrolled by this person or that person, and that's definitely not the case.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, well, how are you feeling personally? I mean, that to be demoralized like that, 2020 was demoralizing for everybody. And then, we all survived that, we're eking along barely. And then 2021, people that you think are your friends, people, your compatriots, people who have your back are just nowhere to be seen. I mean, people have been going through that a lot these days because of all the COVID stuff and just the separating the wheat from the chaff. But it's like you had it double fold, because I'm sure you were experiencing COVID craziness too, like everybody did.
Yeah, I mean, DC was never really that bad. Well, we just ended our lockdown, but I don't know. I stayed to myself in my apartment a lot even before then, so it didn't really affect me all too much. But yeah,
but you're doing okay. You got a few people now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
A few people. It's hard because I'm kind of like, well, can I trust this person when they say they're going to be there?
Yeah.
And can I trust this person to like not one day decide to leak our conversations on the internet? Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have to trust people. Maybe I'm too trusting, but
yeah. Well, I mean, being trusting is a good thing. You don't want to be so jaded that you don't let in good people. So I know it's a balance, but girl, I'm pulling for you. It's just it's crazy times.
I mean, I love the people at VDare. I love Peter. They're fantastic people. They're one of the few people who reached out to me after I was fired, and they're like, thank you for standing up and
excellent
stuff.
Yeah, they do seem like really good people. Apparently there's some big VDare house in West Virginia or something. I guess it's where Peter Brimelow lives or something. And my friend Michael Sisko said, Michael, listen to this, that he's going to take me there one day. So maybe you can be there that same day and we can all have a good old grand time.
Yeah, do a road trip out to DC to pick me up first.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that actually becomes a thing, I'm gonna I'm good at nagging people and making things happen. That's one of my talents. So maybe I'll do my little part. And of course you could just say, hey, I'll swing out there too. We'll come and get you. So because you live in DC, you don't have a car? You just do mass transit?
I don't know how to drive.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I have a license, so I technically know how to drive, but I haven't driven since I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So I do not trust myself to drive. I don't think I would even know like what to do with it. No.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had a friend like that in college. She never even had her license. I'm like, what planet are you from? But I guess in some places you can pull that off.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get to a few current events and then we'll wrap it up. We're doing pretty good on time. So man, you call out anti-whiteness, and you don't couch it in this whole critical race theory hurts Black people too, through the, soft bigotry of low expectations and all that stuff, which I'm so sick of hearing. You say the word white, which a lot of people won't even say. So, I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, to me, I really should ask you all the questions at once, because I see Rittenhouse, the Charlottesville trial, the Ahmaud Arbery thing, even like the red versus blue, people getting the jab and all this kind of stuff. I mean, to me, it's all the same thing. I saw you post something, and this may have been today, it doesn't matter when, but you were talking about how white women a lot of times will stand up to whatever, somebody doing something nuts on a subway, well, like the man won't be saying anything. Now, on one hand, I get it that, sometimes the men are the breadwinners and women are in a position where they can say things. That would be me, because I'm not gainfully employed. So I do have a certain amount of freedom that people who work for corporate jobs don't. However, that doesn't mean you should not stand up for somebody if they're being pummeled or whatever. There still should be that common human decency. So just tell me about anti-whiteness. What do people need to know about it? Are people waking up to it? Was the Virginia election kind of a wake-up call?
So I think the Virginia election, I don't think it was a vote for Youngkin. I think it was just anti-McAuliffe.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy who was so out of touch. Not only did he say, no, parents shouldn't be involved in the classroom with their own children, but he campaigns with the head of the American Federation for Teachers on the last day of his campaign. That is just incredibly tone deaf. But yeah, I think people are starting to wake up in that they're seeing, because of lockdown, actually, they're seeing what's being taught to their children. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. I had no idea this was going on. How long has this been happening for? And I mean, I can tell you it's going on for a very long time. This has been like, I would say, gosh, it was definitely going on when I went to elementary school. And I remember like after 2001, after 9/11, like I remember learning that we had to be friends with our Muslim neighbors as kids in my class became orphans, like stuff like that, like insane stuff like that. So it'd been going on for a while. I guess other people, when it was literally in their living room, they finally saw what was happening.
Right.
So I do think people are waking up. I do think conservatives have this obsession with minorities, and that they'll say, oh, critical race theory is actually anti-Black because it teaches Black people that they can never succeed, or it's anti-Asian because, I don't know, AP classes are bad or something like that.
Right.
But, no, I think people are starting to wake up. I think there are ways that they could figure out that the issue is more in general anti-whiteness that has infected literally everything. But I think there's also a problem with some people who they say, if you're not immediately touching on some third rail topics, that you're never going to get it. Therefore, it's not even worth reaching you. Therefore, it's not even worth talking to you or being open to what you're saying.
Right.
And I think it's a problem in general for the movement. But yeah, I think people are waking up. Maybe I willfully want to believe that, but then again, I'm still very black-pilled, and I think everything's doomed all the time. So.
Yeah. I'm pretty black-pilled myself. So like the Rittenhouse trial, they're deliberating right now as we speak. Who knows? If your next notification could say they've come down with a verdict.
That's what I'm waiting for here. Yep.
You want to check? Has it? Okay. But to me, there's so many issues. We don't have to go into it. But I see it as not even a Second Amendment thing. I see it as a war on a white dude out there being able to defend himself, and we see all this crime that is forgiven by certain people groups and allowed by others. And, if you can't defend yourself in the middle of riots, if you can't go out there and protect property and life, I mean, what's the whole point of this great American experiment? I mean, it's stupid,
And I think like, I feel like it took so long for anyone to find out that he was there, because he was literally putting out fires and trying to give first aid to people. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that had been buried until the trial. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I had been following this very closely and I did not even know that.
Yeah.
Like, that's bad. That's bad. I mean, that just shows like even conservative media wasn't reporting on that. And that they're saying, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero. He's a victim. And he brought a gun when he shouldn't have brought a gun. And now we're all against open carry for some reason.
Yeah. And crossing state lines.
Yeah.
I'm like, for goodness sake, what are you even talking about?
I feel like only criticism, I'm sorry, I feel like the only criticism anyone could have is that, yes, he was a child. Where were all the rest of the adults? Why was it on a child to do this?
Amen. Yep, that's the question. I think that's the big elephant in the room. Why is he the only person out there? Where are all the adults? Where are all the parents? Where are all the business owners? They're too busy putting BLM signs in their windows and hoping their glass doesn't get broken.
Yes, exactly.
It's ludicrous. I'm telling you, I don't know what I'm going to do if he gets convicted, just because I mean, I have 3 young sons, and whenever it's like the Covington kid thing, like I saw that through the lens of being a mother, just like what that kid was going through. It, like, I can't even imagine. I just have a real heart for him. And I think another thing that was interesting too, a lot of even left-wingers were like, we had no idea he killed non-blacks. We thought he was out there, killing black people left and right. So does that mean it would have been okay to do that? What?
I mean, that's probably what they think, but like, it just goes to show, like, if you're in these progressive bubbles, if you're in these bubbles and you're taught Kyle Rittenhouse bad, you just don't question anything. You just assume like, oh yeah, he must have killed like all these black guys. Right. He must be a white supremacist. He must have killed black people, obviously. Like,
right.
It's bad. Some people are waking up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So Charlottesville trial, kind of the same thing that's been going on. Gosh, what, 3 weeks now? I see it as
the 4th week.
It's been a while, but to me, like, Rittenhouse is like, can white people defend themselves? I see the Charlottesville trial, and I almost went to Charlottesville. I've been writing about it for years. My friend Anne wrote the book Charlottesville Untold. So, I don't care who was there. People have a right, no matter who they are, to be out there and lawfully assemble. And it was a lawful assembly. And if it's majority white, so what? And that's what gets on my nerves about conservatives talk about Charlottesville, even when they're like, this is a really important trial, even if there were bad guys there. It's like, that's so beside the point. Bad guys have a right to speech too. I mean, that's the whole point of speech, is that we're supposed to be out there discussing things, and it's supposed to temper violence. So yeah, I see it as again, can people lawfully assemble who are anti-leftist and majority white? What do you think about the trial?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, so back in 2017, I was working at the Media Research Center at the time, and I was in West Virginia. I'm like, I want to be out of the state, because I'm watching all these media reports, and I know that the media wants something bad to happen. I can tell they want something bad to happen. I know something bad's going to happen. I know if something bad doesn't happen, they're going to make something bad happen. So I am like, I'm not even going to let anyone think I was in Virginia at the time. So, I was in West Virginia, but gosh, I mean, I basically agree. It's a battle of whether people in general like have a free speech in America, again, even if they're saying things that are unpopular, that are bad. And can a group of Antifa activists come in and then instigate violence, and then suddenly it's everyone else's fault when they had a permit?
Right.
To begin with.
Right. Just like Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
If there weren't riots going down in Kenosha, none of this would be happening. Hello.
I just thought, going into it, I was reading the media reports, and I was reading about like Airbnb banning people from even being able to book rooms if they wanted to be in Charlottesville that weekend. I'm like, I'm like, this is bad. Like
Mhm.
if something doesn't happen, the media is so gung-ho about this being like the talking point for the rest of forever. They're going to make sure something happens.
Yeah.
If something did happen, and obviously they could have their talking point, they have their talking point out of it, but it's like, you wanted this to happen.
Yeah.
You were instigating this whole time. You were talking about this. And if the media didn't cover it the way they did, there probably would not have been as many Antifa activists there.
Right.
Lots of problems.
Totally preordained. I agree, because that I was going to go, and because I had been paying attention to what was going on in the world, and the Battle of Berkeley and all these places going nuts, and base stick guy and all that kind of thing. I was just like, I want to go because I believe in Southern heritage and I want to defend that monument, but also something bad's going to happen. Like, I knew it too. And I was like, I don't want to be in the position where I have to defend myself and I get in trouble. And I thought that back in 2017.
Yeah, I mean, I also feel like as women, maybe we shouldn't put ourselves in harm's way. I'm
Yeah.
very, very small. I'm 5'1", so I I would be out of luck if something happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Speaking of being a woman, do you find that you get pushback within like the manosphere in journalism and anything? Like they're just like, oh, she's just a baddie broad. Not that would even be a feminist thing, but do you ever feel like you're, I don't know the word, given more grief just because you're a woman?
I think in certain ways, one thing that I do a lot on Gab is that I talk about like how the dynamics between men and women have completely fundamentally changed. And I still believe that it's up to men to lead women, and that men need to make better choices regarding women. So I'll see people who are like, oh, well, especially like the pickup artists, people, they'll be like, oh, well, why shouldn't I just go out every weekend and sleep with a bunch of women and then call all women whores? It's like, well, you're literally causing the things that you say are the problem, and you don't realize that at the root of it, you are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say stuff like that, people obviously call me a feminist, and I don't think that's a feminist point of view to have, but
I'd say that's a very traditionalist view to have.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm saying, no, like it should be on men, like men should be the ones to ask out women.
Right.
It should be the ones who, the whole 50-50 splitting the bills, splitting household expenses evenly thing. I'm like, you should probably just step up and be a man. I don't know.
Right.
Like women can have their own roles and men can have their roles. And people, I think they're also corrupted by feminism. They like, I feel feminism has like made women believe that if they give men money, they're being empowered.
Yeah. Exactly.
It makes absolutely no sense. But I mean, some men, they see that the beneficiaries of it, like they'll get mad at me, especially on Instagram. I'll talk about like personal things that I witnessed. Like, yeah, this guy took a girl on a date to a coffee shop, and then he asked her to split the two coffees in half as a date. Like,
right.
That's like, really? And they're like, oh, well, you're a feminist if you don't believe this. Like, why should men pay for everything? And it's like, well, because that's like the role of a man. I don't know.
So you're defending the patriarchy, really, but being called a feminist at the same time. I mean, you can't win, girl. That's crazy.
No. So there are definitely, like, I think it's, they say that I'm a feminist for talking about these things. And then like the anti-porn thing, they're like, oh, well, if women weren't crazy, we wouldn't need porn. And I'm like, well, maybe if you stop looking at porn, women would talk to you.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing that I wanted to get back to this point. So this is a perfect opportunity. I always say that feminism wouldn't be taking over the institutions, the feminization of everything wouldn't be a thing. Okay, let's just say women are out there jabbering away about this insane stuff, but if men hadn't allowed it to happen. And I would say that about anti-whiteness. There'd be the radical, egalitarian freaks out there, the Black Power people saying their stuff, yeah. But if white people didn't let it happen, it wouldn't be happening. I mean, you have to participate.
You have to realize also when you have been complicit in these things.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely the case when it comes to feminism, like anti-white stuff. And people say, oh, well, the anti-white stuff is pushed on us. They'll usually say it's pushed on us by Jews. And I'm like, well, at some point, if a majority of white people believe these things, like there is some culpability there too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if yeah, people who are like, oh, the Jews are the root of all problems. Well, just don't do what the Jews say then. Okay, boom, like it's not that hard, and I get, wokeness and, the ADL and critical race theory and people losing their jobs. I get it's gotten harder, but you can still resist stupid people saying stupid things by simply saying no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So one random question, go
Sure.
back to Charlottesville. Did you ever date Matthew Heimbunk?
Okay.
And the only reason I'm asking you that is most people are like, who's that? But in Orthodox circles,
Sure.
people know his name. And as an Orthodox Christian, I'm like, I should find that out. Did you date him?
So he had a girlfriend the whole time I knew him. I mean, he had a girlfriend the whole time I knew him, and I wasn't like particularly interested in dating at the time because I was a freshman in college. But yeah, I don't know. People think that we dated. People don't think that we dated. They think we were friends. I don't know.
Okay.
Complicated human relationships.
Yeah. Did he buy you a cup of coffee? We'll know what that means now.
I don't think he ever bought me coffee because I don't drink coffee, but
Okay.
I definitely believe the interest was on his half.
Okay, interesting. And what do you think about, because he, whatever, National Socialist for a while, then joined Antifa or something. I don't know. He became like a left winger, and I don't know what he's doing now. Apparently he's doing okay in the trial. I don't know what's in the guy's heart, but what's your take on him and his roller coaster life?
When I knew him, he was much different than he is now. He was Catholic, first off. So he was like very, very devoutly Catholic. He was also big into Ron Paul and stuff like that. And I know people always talk about pictures of us together, and I'm holding the Israeli flag. That was his flag. He had an Israeli flag. Like at the time, he was like pro-Israel and he was a Zionist. He was much different. I know you're like shocked.
That's crazy, because I've seen that picture. It's tiny. You can't even tell it's you, but I was just like, what's going on
I'm
there?
tiny, yeah. But yeah, no, he was much different. And it's funny because like he was like warning me of like staying away from other people who are too far right, but then he is the way he is now. And I'm sorry. I don't. The only ill feelings I really have towards him is that he knew that hit piece about me was coming out because they interviewed him for it, and he did not warn me. And I feel like that's like one of the worst things you could do as a human being to someone else. Like if I knew a hit piece was coming out of him and they interviewed me for it, I would tell him.
Right.
Like even though I have not spoken to him in like 10 plus years, I would still make sure to let him know.
Right. Or not do the interview with Right Wing Watch. Right.
Because that's what he was saying. He was reformed. So I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if I've read that whole hit piece. I'll have to read that, and I'll link to it because it's I don't remember him being cited in it. I'll have to read it again. But
they ask him, Jared Holt asks him about the picture, and he said, we were friends and we went to demonstrations together. And then Jared Holt made some tweets about it saying that I deny that we dated, he denies that we dated, so we didn't date.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess my last question for you would be ramifications of all the stuff we've talked about. How do people navigate the world? How are you going to navigate the world? What do we do the future going forward? Journalists, activists, parents, just why do you do what you do? I mean, you're not winning popularity contests for it. Is it just because truth is important?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing people can do is stay anonymous as long as they can and do as good OPSEC as possible so no one can figure out who you are. And the one thing I gotta say is about like the Zoomers and stuff like that. Like I see like TikTok videos people post of like, here's this person saying a lot of really great stuff, but that's their face and that's their real name. And they're doing it because I think they want the clout of being like a right-wing social media influencer and not like I'm saying these truths because they have to be said. And that's something I would like very much like warn against, especially for 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, because there's a difference between you're saying these things and you get doxxed, or you're saying these things and you've always kind of had like a profile out there. But if you're giving up any chance of ever being anonymous, you're setting yourself up for failure, I think. I don't know. I'm very pro anons, and I think like people say, oh, well, if you're not saying things like out there with your real name, then oh, you don't really need it. You're not really risking anything. It's like you don't realize what these people risk is so much if they actually have their name out there.
That's interesting.
That's my word to nuggets.
Yeah, because I kind of go back and forth. So, when my big docs happened or whatever, I was just dissident mama, and I never really hid it. I would reference that I lived in North Carolina, whatever. I mean, I knew it was going to happen eventually, and everybody that I cared about knew. So it wasn't like a big secret. But so I just quietly put my name on my about page because I'm like, I was going to write this big blog, and then people talked me out of it. They're just like, that's giving them too much attention, just pretend like your name's always been there. So that was a good way. So on one hand, when I have friends who want to be on Signal, and we all want to, Edward Snowden uses Signal, so we all got to use it and this kind of stuff. I'm just like, you're going to be found out eventually. That's kind of how I see it at some point. And I do think there's a power into having your real name, but I also see your point as well. And anonymous speech isn't by definition a bad thing. I mean, the founders were writing anonymously all the time. So I don't know. I may have to think about what you said, because sometimes I just tell people, lay it all out there, wear your heart on your sleeve, but it is scary.
Yeah. I mean, there are times where I still wish, I wish I could go back to being anonymous and just like having my own blog and no one knows who I am, and then things would be easier.
Right.
I mean, I think it's also especially important if you believe that you want to have good people like in these institutions that matter, having your name out there will prevent that from happening.
That's true too. That's a good point. Yeah. I will say this is one thing that I think if people are writing anonymously, whatever you say, if you get doxxed, make sure it's something you don't have to apologize for. Sure. And I think that's something that has guided me. You get all angry sometimes and you're like, I'm anonymous, I just want to say this thing to trigger people. But it's like, if you get doxxed, you don't want to apologize for anything you've ever said. So I think that would be a fair trade, because I mean, that's what I've done with Dissident Mama. And now you go back and read my earlier stuff, and I was a libertarian and a Protestant, and now I'm a dissident right-winger who's an Orthodox Christian, but whatever, that's just my evolution. What are you going to do about that? I would say another thing too, like 18-year-olds, I was an idiot when I was 18. You got to think about how you're going to change over the years.
Yeah. Well, luckily I didn't change much, but
yeah, I know. And you've been getting published since whatever, 2011 or 2012. But most people aren't like that. Most people change so much and they evolve, not that you were not evolving. You just were smart from the get-go because your parents were, setting you straight and raising you in a belief system that was shared by your family. And I think that's important too, because, the atomization of families and people living all over the place, families now don't even agree on anything, which is why COVID has driven families apart.
The worst thing I've seen in a long time were all those people who turned their parents in because of January 6th. Like, how can you turn in your own parents to the feds for internet clout? Like, okay, I guess you could put that on your college admissions essay. Okay.
It's it's just Maoist, how they would get the parents to crawl through the broken glass and all this kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, that's frightening. I actually didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah,
that's
nuts. More than once. Like, oh yeah, that was my mother, or like that was such relative of mine, and that's their name, and here's where they live on the internet.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, Ashley, it has been a pleasure getting to know you. I would love to be considered one of your people. I think you're a wonderful human and just a truth teller, unapologetic. Those are a rare breed these days. So I really appreciate the time, and I'll be praying for you and pulling for you. And if you ever need my help, my little small potatoes help on anything, I would love to help you out. And I just wish you the best.
Well, thank you.
All right, girl, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.